One of the hardest things to get right from the beginning of a series is atmosphere. Whether it's through the tone, the visuals, the soundtrack, or the dialogue, Tatami Galaxy shines in all of these aspects. It has one of the fastest dialogues, especially in this opening sequence, that creates a sort of cadence murmur, as either our main protagonist, the unnamed Watashi, or even the self-proclaimed god, spew out so much extra information. Yuasa makes it very apparent that this is to indicate a conscious stream of mind that Watashi goes through. Now, there's no way to take in everything, and that's okay because the feelings that are conveyed is still clearly present. Watashi is a very over-analytical, self-absorbed individual that constantly pushes off the inevitable, that regret that he feels of having an underwhelming life that hasn't lived up to his expectations of what college is supposed to be like, what his future is supposed to be like. On top of establishing what Watashi will be like for the rest of the series, we learn about where he lives, who he blames for his misfortunes, and the person that he's most interested in, which is also the one who actually gets Watashi to slow down for the first time. The wind chimes and ramen are part of these core things that helps Watashi not think too much, as these are the only moments in the first 30 seconds of the series that Watashi isn't talking. When Watashi's energy is matched by Kamatake Tsukimono Kami, or was it actually Kamatake Tsukimono Kamo? Point being, it doesn't really matter. And we're told this to further emphasize that these names, or maybe learning about the residence that Watashi lives in, which was rebuilt during the Shogunate, is not really relevant. Just sit back, relax, and watch the main story beats unfold in a meaningful way. Now, I'm not going to be talking about the OP here, or in fact the ED, so I'll just save that for a separate video, since if we dived into it now, it would be full of spoilers. We learn what Watashi seeks after the OP. The scene is colored with the one thing he hopes to get out of his college experience, as he has the opportunity to reinvent himself. Anyone who has gone to college, including myself, has had this feeling before. We reflect on our high school experience, acknowledge that we can do a little better, and seek to do that in the future with every new interaction. There are over 500 plus clubs at most schools and so many new people who don't really know a single thing about you. They don't know about your flaws, your strengths, your insecurities, and your opinions. Everything about you is malleable, whether you choose to start maybe wearing button-down shirts or rock an undercut for a more hip hairstyle. That college-colored campus sounds too good to be true. And it is, since this is what Watashi kinda goes for when he's reaching for one of the clubs. In this episode, it's the tennis circle itself. We see the darkness lurking underneath that tinted rose color that gets exposed throughout this episode. Watashi believes that he making the changes within himself superficially will amount to his dream, but we see it so early that the gap between his idealized life and his reality is just too big. How do you train social skills when you weren't ever social to begin with? The facade cracks, as faking it till you make it isn't a sustainable approach to life. And Watashi, even though he recognizes it, he doesn't actually do anything to change that. Instead of looking inward, he projects his pain and discomfort of not having what he wants with this eerie shading of rose that permeates Ozu's entrance. Ozu breaking and interacting with Watashi's monologue kind of both shows us that Watashi is one, comfortable enough to let him break his inner flow, but equally push the blame onto Ozu. The 8 out of 10 aspects that appear on the screen are actually addressed and pointed out throughout the entirety of the episode, as well as future episodes, of all the ways that Ozu is the little demon, or the little devil that he is. The camaraderie that Ozu and Watashi have here under the bridge in the darkness is very reminiscent of some of the playful back and forth I kind of have with my own friends. It's just Watashi kind of paints him as the antagonist of his college life. The focus that Akashi gets in this busy episode is beautifully executed to show us that Watashi really cares or thinks about her. As with the opening, this little scope isolating her in the darkness is exactly how Watashi fawns over her. She's always involved in some sort of way with his and Ozu's antics. Every action, unfortunately, has an equal and opposite reaction, like with the fireworks getting sent right back to our poor Watashi. We get to the crux of the episode's theme, the black thread of fate. Whether one chooses to follow that string or try their hardest to break away from it, you'll always end up back where you started, just like the looping mechanism that we see at the end of the episode. The most obvious example of the string kind of in your face, is the Mochi Man dangling from the center of Watashi's room, and how that it's literally in his face, this opportunity, but it has become such a daily object in his life, in his room, that he kind of naturally works around it, even if multiple people over and over again point it out to him. This line of separation between reality and delusions is ingrained in these scenes. The Black Cupids go around challenging the strings of fate that supposedly tie lovers together, because Watashi needs to push his loneliness and his insecurities onto the ones around him. His rationale is that others have lost sight of it, and it's his duty to kind of show them the truth. This hypocritical attempt, which seems to work as the Black Cupids kind of build a presence on campus, but at the end of the day, when Watashi is still alone and he runs through the field of couples happy and in love, if he doesn't acquire his rose-colored life, why should anyone else? But in reality, he's not the one putting his foot forward to chase after it. The dangling of that opportunity finally sets into his mind after multiple attempts, with the last one, the Castilla. Ozu says that it's best eaten with someone else, and even Watashi is surprised that he thinks about Akashi. Granted, this isn't the first time that he's been nudged in this direction, since even in the opening, we have the self-proclaimed god saying that, well, you got some competition, like, you gotta make the move. Even after all of that though, the anxiety of putting himself out there and taking that first step towards the rose-colored life scares him, since all he's ever done was cut the strings of others. What happens when it occurs to him when someone else cuts his string off? Even when Akashi seems to give the chance of a promise, that promise is lost to the ramblings of our overthinking Watashi. The final push, that final struggle of walking up to Akashi on the bridge during the festival, when Watashi, who, throughout this entire episode seems to be a well-oiled machine, breaks down upon confrontation. That's enough for today. The act of attempting a change and not really progressing is sometimes more addictive than the actual act of changing. Watashi believes that a small step in the right direction is enough, but that's exactly how he's quote-unquote wasted the past 2 years of his college life, never getting further than that one step itself. Well, that's all for the video and the first episode of Tatami Galaxy. This episode sets up our main character and supporting cast and overloads our senses with visuals and audio that make it impossible to take in fully, and that's okay. The future videos of this series will build upon the core segments of this first episode, and one of the big reasons that I'm not talking about some of them here right now. I hope you look forward to more. Like and subscribe if you enjoy this sort of stuff. See you all next time.